by Boaz. Boaz died right after they were married. She gives birth to a baby. This is all now she has in the world. What did she do with the baby? She brought him up. She educated him to be There's a story about the Chassam Sofer, the Chayil Levrocha. As a little boy, his father noticed in him a prodigy, an Eloi Osam. He was one in the world here. Where he lived, certainly there was nothing equal to him. Not super genius. He was born this way. The father was a very serious Orthodox Jew in Germany, in Frankfurt. The grandfather was a very big Lamzin and who was Machadish a lot of Torah. That was the grandfather. And the son, who's the father of the Chassam Sofer, was also a very big Lamzin, but he went into business. And when he saw that he has this little baby boy, Moshe, and this boy is a potential of potentials, he devoted a few years in which he did very little business. He would sit and learn with this little boy and pour more and more Torah into him and make him think and make him answer difficult questions. You hear that? He was mechanech him. And this little boy had to go to sleep at night. The father had to put him to bed. He was so young yet. Do you hear this? And after he put him into bed, before he sang Kriyat Shema, he would ask him a very difficult kasha. This boy, little boys, about the phone. And the Chassam Sofer was a genius. Geniuses can answer any question. Doesn't mean the answer will be correct, but it'll sound good. So I've conversed with geniuses at various times in my life. Anything you ask them, they always answer. If they were right or wrong, but it's off the cuff, mamish. So this little baby Chassam Sofer would give an answer, and the father would give him a smack and say, "No, you're going to be me Akeya. I want a good answer from you. You're going to give me a good answer." You hear what a chinuch he gave him? That when he's mamish, that he's falling asleep, he should tire his brain and give a better answer. It's unbelievable what a father this was. But he gave away for this son time, energy, devotion. He grew up when he was a bacher. In Frankfurt, there was Rav Nosson Adler, and there was the Haflor. They had these two shining stars in that part of Europe. And he learned by both of them, but the more principled ever was Rav Nosson Adler. He said that Rav Nosson Adler knew everything. He said there wasn't a thing in Torah that he didn't know. He writes this in a tshuva. Anyway, Lamaisa. When he was learning by Rav Nosson Adler, came a day which was the yahrzeit, Yom HaZikaron, of his grandfather. Every year, grandfather, Chiddush Torah. Yeah, Zikaron. But that day he had to be out of town for business. There was no way he can come back before nightfall, which would be too late. So he said to his son, this bocher, this genius, "You're going to say this Dvar Torah of the Oba Fatah, the grandfather." And the Chassam Sofer came to the big shul in Frankfurt. He had a Kayach Hadibo or her. And he recited the whole Chiddush of the grandfather. And when he finished, he said, and now I have a few questions. One question, a second, and he destroyed the whole Chiddush, and he said a whole original piece of his own. The whole town were up in arms. When the father came back towards the evening, it's all over. They approached him. They said, "You have a son, a real genius. He knows more than the grandfather knew." And then they started singing. And the father heard that, and he was a super religious person. So he waited to very late at night. Some sefer comes home to sleep from the yeshiva. He called him over and he said, "You said over about Torah of the grandfather." And then you asked questions, yes. And you disagreed with him entirely, and you said your own piece, yes. The father went over, he was a big man, gave him a smack in the face, and he said, "Lacking Yirat Shamayim as you do, you will never be a true Lamdan Talmid Chacham." Did he give it to him? He went to sleep a broken soul, and he got up in the morning, went to the yeshiva to daven, and as he's learning with his Rebbe, the Rebbe learned with him privately. And he told him the story. Nagla was shaken by it, and he said, "I want to tell you something. You have the potential to become one of the greatest Gedolim of Cloudy Soil worldwide. No less than that. However, being close to your father being so religious, such Yiras Shamayim, with such respect for his father, all of us Shalom, your father is going to restrain your train of thought. Every time you're going to want to be machadish about Torah, you're going to have to look up if Zaidi didn't say something the opposite, and you won't be able to think anymore there. That is going to prevent you from developing your Torah capabilities, and you're not going to grow into one of the great people in our time. Go home this evening and tell your father that I said the following. As long as your son will remain with you, his fear of saying anything disagreeing with the grandfather will prevent your son from growing up to be a great Talmid Chacham. Agree to sever permanently all ties with your son. Give him over to me for the rest of your life. I guarantee you will become one of the greatest in the world. If you give permission, I take your son. If you don't, keep him. And he came home and he told this to his father. This is the father that gave years of being mechanech this boy. This isn't a father, an absentee father, as you'd say. He was mechanech, and he made a gagea b'Torah out of him. Who knows what he gave into this boy? He heard the words of Nasnagla. He said, tomorrow morning, go tell your Rebbe, I've said goodbye to you forever, my son. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? The first time I read this story, I cried. This is Avraham Avinu, this is Akedas Yitzchak, giving his son away to Hashem Yisborach. Is this? Can you imagine what this person did? This isn't an Akedah. And Hannah, for years, never had a child. Till she davened and davened and davened and davened and then had a bracha from Eli and whatnot. And eventually has a child. And gave the child away to Hashem forever. She doesn't have to keep seeing him and having nachas to see what how he becomes a Novi and the Shaitet of Klal. Doesn't have to see any of this. Hashem, I give you away my child. What about Rus HaMoaviyah? She had a child finally. What nachas did this woman ever have in this world? This child. What does she have? So it says, at the very end, Vatikach Naomi es hayeled. Naomi took the baby. Vatishiseu b'cheiko. Placed him in her bosom. Vatihi loy loy menes. She became the stepmother. She brought up the child. She brought up the child. Ruth is the mother. You know what Ruth said? What do I know about chinuch of Jewish children? I went to PS 121 that day, and to Erasmus High or whatever it is. Barnard. What does she know? Naomi can make a yid out of him. You take the child. But the Yulad Bein Naomi. Naomi has given birth to a child, they said. And Ruth stands there and smiles. You hear what she had in her?